A few months later, I decided I was gonna go and chat and visit my dad. But for me to go, I had to request wheelchair assistance, fly with my husband, and pay for an upgrade so I could lie down, because the dysautonomia was causing me orthostatic intolerance. So I couldn't really even stay in line for long periods without collapsing, right? This was before I started the program. Then the second time I traveled, it was at Junior's insistence. He goes, maybe you hit that jockey stick, it's gonna make you better. I'll bet you go and it's gonna make you better. About a year after this first travel, right? I traveled with my husband this time, but no wheelchair assistance, everything was fine. And I came back by myself, so I went with him, but came back by myself. Oh my God, and from there, the progress has been just, like amazing.
How's it going, guys? Miguel here from CFS Recovery. In this video, we have Olga. She's back for round 2. Essentially, it's her 1-year Thriver update video. So just over a year ago, she was in the Recovery Jumpstart program. She joined, and it's a very different life than what she's living now. She's already had her initial video, which you can watch up here. But since then, I wanted to bring her back on because she's made so much progress. And it just goes to show that you don't just hit this ceiling in recovery. You can keep going. The sky's the limit. You can get better and better if you continue implementing and following the right things. So, Olga, it's amazing to have you back on here. How has life been for the last 6 months or since we last spoke?
Amazing. Yeah, the difference is night and day, truly.
Yeah. And you've been traveling, doing all this stuff, and life is.
Yeah, and traveling in a very different way, because in the thick of things, well, so I have family, 10 and a half hour flight away from me,
Mhm.
right? So when I was in the thick of things, my mom passed away and I couldn't go. Like it was like traveling wasn't even possible. It was during COVID. And a few months later, I decided I was going to go and chat and visit my dad. But for me to go, I had to request wheelchair assistance, fly with my husband, and pay for an upgrade so I could lie down, because the dysautonomia was causing me orthostatic intolerance. So I couldn't really even stay in line for long periods without collapsing, right?
And that was earlier this
So
year, right?
this was no, this was a little earlier. This was before I started the program. So I traveled like this before I started the program.
Got it.
But it wasn't really, I mean, I wanted to see my folks, but it wasn't it wasn't like it used to be, to wheelchair assistance is something very different. When you're flying like that, you have to go through security with someone pushing you, and very different. I was attached to my water bottle because I was so afraid of, electrolytes.
Yeah.
You kind of get the picture. That's how I traveled the first time. Then the second time I traveled, it was at Junior's insistence. He goes, maybe you hit that jockey stick, it's gonna make you better. I'll bet you go and it's gonna make you better. Yeah, and I was like, oh, but I don't wanna have wheelchair assistance. He goes, well, don't use it. And so that was in March of this year, about a year after this first travel, right? So another 10 and a half hours. I traveled with my husband this time, but no wheelchair assistance, everything was fine. And I came back by myself, so I went with him, but came back by myself. Oh my God, and from there, the progress has been just, like amazing. I can go back because I have the watch, right? Even though we're not supposed to be tracking, and I don't track it every day, I really don't, but I went back and I looked at the graphs because you can play with all this stuff and you can see, at least on the steps. I know that's not the only way to measure this stuff because there's a bunch of emotional stuff that a watch cannot possibly measure, right? But I watched my step count went all of a sudden, way higher than what it used to be. And Yeah, and from then, so now fast forward to this October, I went back all by myself this time. Traveled with my dad, who's about 80, he's 89, he's gonna be 90 in March. So I took him, we got on a bus and we traveled to a different state at night, no sleep at all, like no sleep, get there. We adapt to the conditions that our relatives can provide. So it's like not a perfectly dark room. Nothing is perfect. It's not your diet. It's not anything. You travel, you just adapt to what is.
Hmm.
And wow, we had a blast. I stayed there 6 weeks,
Wow.
and it was hot. It was unseasonably hot, with the heat spell so bad. Just so you have an idea, coming back on the day that I came back, the day before, Taylor Swift had a concert in Rio. I don't know if you saw it in the news, but someone died at the concert because of heat stroke.
Mm.
And on that night, I am getting on the plane coming back. There are lots of Canadians there. And there are lots of Americans who had been at the concert the previous day who said 1,000 people fainted.
Wow.
Okay,
That's so hot.
it was that hot. And get this, I was at the airport for 6.5 hours with no air conditioning because it broke. So I made it. I decided, I was gonna hang out. Yeah, I kept hydrated because everyone there was trying to keep hydrated. Some women took her tops and were wearing like these athletic bras
Hmm.
that they were had on. The little kids were all in diapers because it was so freaking hot.
It's like a sauna
Yeah, it was a sauna for 6.5 hours. So going from not being able to like sit on a like a stand up and go through security a year before,
there. Wow.
through the to withstanding the heat and the sweat and the electrolyte loss, and not really being super, just shrugging.
That's
And then getting into the plane with lots of sick people. They were coughing. They were like, and it was so cold. And this woman next to me goes, "Oh, we're all gonna get sick." And I'm going, maybe it's
swatted
possible.
away. Swatted away. Right.
Right,
That's
right.
wow.
Yeah, and it was a possibility because it was like the kids that gone to the concert were all coming back to the U.S. and Canada, and so they had been really partying, and they were coughing and sneezing and whatever else.
Wow. So it's like you went through the nervous system gauntlet almost, like through every test at it, heat
Yeah,
intolerance, standing up. Wow, that is wild. And you were able to do that. And just over a year prior, you're really struggling with a wheelchair just to get through the airport,
right.
through it. So
I couldn't go vote without a wheelchair. So I voted for the elections here. I couldn't stand in line for too long. Even in normal temperature, like I couldn't stand up for that long. It was weakness and fatigue and just feeling faint and then low blood pressure, and I would just,
mhm.
yeah.
Wow. So looking back over the past year, you've done some amazing stuff, completely turned your life around. What are some of the most significant changes you've noticed in your health? I know it's probably hard to pinpoint certain areas because everything's kind of changed, but what are the biggest things that stand out?
I think it's resilience. I don't know. It's a mind game, and it's resilience. I still go back to my normal thought patterns. That some of them are unhealthy, but I'm able to catch that quickly and just turn it around, and so that doesn't grip me anymore. So
Hmm.
the other thing is I got bit by a tick in Brazil.
Mm,
Whereas before I'd be freaked out completely, so now I have, this other disease.
yeah.
Well, I took care of the itch, I observed it, and that was it. So,
Mhm. Yeah, because a lot of people would be kind of freaking out saying, oh, do I have Lyme? Do I have
oh,
Lyme?
now Lyme disease, now this, now that.
But you got it treated as soon as you could and dealt
Oh,
with it.
yeah, the itch, so it's like I don't have Lyme
Hmm.
until I have Lyme. I have an itch, treat the itch, and let it go.
Hmm.
and I'm able to do that and laugh about later. So I took picture of the tick because I wasn't sure. I can't really see him. Like, is this really a tick? What is this? So I took a picture. Oh, it's a tick, but you can laugh about it and not be so heavy,
Yeah,
you know.
because if you were to panic about it, I mean, that is going to put a lot of
Oh,
stress on your nervous system, and it's not going to do anything. So you did what you could, what was in your control. You treated the
right,
fish, right? That's
right.
great. That's great. So, yeah, I mean, so much has changed for you in the last year. I still remember our first call when you were just slouched on the couch, could barely sit up with you and your husband. I remember that. And for the last 6 months that you've been making lots of progress, well, 9 months, really after that trip, you had this hockey stick progress. What was it like when you did experience adjustment periods again after that? Was there still fear around the symptoms coming up? What was that like? Because I know a lot of people, they're like, well, don't you deal with symptoms forever? And what do you do when you feel like you go backwards? What was that like for you?
There's less and less fear. I cannot pinpoint like the date when I don't know that fear went away completely. It just doesn't grip me. It just doesn't. I don't stay within the horror stories anymore. I
Mhm.
can make I can make light of things more easily. So I don't think it needs to be perfect. That you have no fear. Um, you just start having enjoying things more and fearing things less.
Mhm.
Like for example, so I had to push myself to drive initially because I hadn't been driving for a long time, and so I had to push myself to drive, and I did that. Sometimes, white knuckling it and going only so far as I could, like driving just nearby, going around the neighborhood just so that I could get back. And I don't know how it happened or when, but I started enjoying driving a little bit more. Like, I cannot say that I drive every day on the freeway and that I would enjoy that, but I caught myself enjoying the driving, like
Mm. Yeah.
when did it happen? I don't know, but I wasn't white knuckling it
Yeah.
anymore.
And what's the mindset like now? Like, are you afraid that a flare would come, or does it feel like you're walking on eggshells? I think that's a question people ask me a lot, and people who have recovered. It's like, are you scared that you're going to go backwards, or this could happen again? What's it like in your mind?
I'll cross that bridge when I get there.
So you don't.
I'm not into this anticipatory mode constantly,
Yeah.
and I'll cross the bridge. And I've experienced so much change that I think I'm more resilient.
Hmm. Yeah. That's kind of like how it was for me. Um, if I got symptoms again down the road, I was like, oh, who cares? If I don't get symptoms, okay, who cares? Great. I'm just going to kind of focus on today. And there's no point walking around being afraid of, like, what if this happens? What if that? And I think that's something you really learn in recovery. It's like everybody's saying you go into remission, or, what if you relapse? Those are all what if questions that don't.
Right. And they're just words that I don't even know what the meaning
Yeah.
of some of these words are, relapse. I'm almost 60, so I've had really great periods in my life and really periods where I had different symptoms.
Hmm. Yeah.
I look back, I can tell very different stories,
Mhm.
um, depending on which part of my life I pick, my childhood, as to what symptoms I had and what that meant.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
You know, I really do think everyone in on this earth, every human being has some of this to some degree. You see some sort of at different times, some symptoms will hit them when that threshold is
Yeah.
closed, or it's if you go beyond it, you'll feel some things.
Hmm. Totally. Totally. I always
Yeah.
share this example with people. It's like everybody's had that experience when they're in grade school or high school and they have to do a speech in front of the class, do some kind of talk, and they're super nervous, they're wired, their heart's racing, maybe even skipping, shortness of breath. It's kind of like that. So people people do experience this, and not just at that time, maybe at different points in their life. Some people just happen to get stuck in that state, and they get stuck
Right.
for months or years, right? So, the human body is the human body. If you push it hard enough or add enough stress, you definitely can feel physical symptoms. But the cool thing is, you can also reverse that, even if you
Right. You rebound more quickly. You just,
exactly,
yeah.
you're much more adaptable. So, in terms of key insights and lessons that you've learned, you did share some things on our first chat, your first interview. But what are the most important lessons you've learned in the last 6 months, when it comes to just recovering from CFS and getting your life back? For me, a big thing that stuck with me was just keeping things simple, not overthinking things. Keep it simple. And I was able to catch my mind when it was starting to go into a spiral or worrying or anticipating. So my whole motto when I was really starting to get my life back was keep it simple, Miguel. What's something that's really helped you continue to build this momentum?
I use the keep it simple a lot too, but let's see. Let's think of something else.
Mm-hmm.
The it's temporary.
Mm,
This is temporary. You gave me, and even for the weirdest symptoms, I think I mentioned this last time. I don't know that I mentioned what symptom it was because I don't want to contaminate people's minds with craziness, you know?
I think it was an eye
Um,
symptom, blurry eye. I
it
think,
was the ptosis, you know?
yeah.
And that was a fear of mine that remained for a very long time. It's like, now I have a neuromuscular something, and so I could get the explanation that it's a hypersensitive nervous system up to a point, except for this thing, you know. So um and at some point you just said, did it ever go away for you? Do you always have it? No, it'll go away again. So it's this thing that it's temporary.
Hmm.
It's temporary. It comes and goes. It'll go away again, and it's some faith. I don't know what it is. I also noticed that people, like Junior says, even normal people, when they get tired, their eyes get a little droopy. You know, there is such a thing as a tired face for a reason.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's so true. That's so true. And I even apply that in just my daily life. If there's stressors or something happening, I'm like, oh, this is just one of those phases, those windows of time. So, do you find yourself using some of these kind of techniques for recovery and applying it to just regular life nowadays?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I don't know that I can differentiate. Yes, you know the stuff. Recognizing that emotions,
Hmm.
fear cycles into symptoms that feed fear, that you have to break that cycle somehow is important.
Hmm.
So so like I was driving the other day, I was super happy, and then you see an accident, which I did. It's like, wow, and immediately recognizing it and going, you're fine.
Hmm.
And,
Yeah.
people are taking care of that.
Hmm.
You attend to the things that you can attend to, and the other stuff is not yours to carry.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I find myself doing that a lot.
Oh yeah, and that's another thing too. I try to really only do things that are within my control, especially if I'm worrying about stuff or anticipating things. It's like even when I travel now, I'll get nervous when the plane starts shaking. When it's like coming into land, I'll get pretty nervous. But then I'll think to myself, okay, if no matter how nervous I am, what am I going to do? Fly the plane? Okay, if it crashes, it crashes. I might as well go down with a smile on my face. So just relax, Miguel. There's nothing you can do. you know?
Right, right.
Yeah. So you've started getting your life back in the last year. Really exciting. And prior to this, how long were you dealing with all of these symptoms for again, and kind of uh, not thriving?
So I got sick, that I can pinpoint the day, March 10th of 2020.
Hmm.
Presumptive COVID, I don't know because I don't have a positive test. And I joined the program last year, so about 2 years,
Hmm.
year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah.
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 2 years and a half, little over 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. So now that you're where you are now, if you could send a message to yourself when you were in April of 2020, when you're just getting into the thick of this and you're struggling and being able to do all the things you can do now, like what kind of message would you tell yourself?
Yeah, you'll be okay. Rule out the things that I would have tried to rule out anyways, because you start having symptoms. I think you need to have those checked.
Hmm.
And when your doctor tells you you're healthy, you feel you feel like, right. I think we all have felt this way. And she didn't know what else to tell me. Don't take it personally. You most probably are. You ruled out some stuff. Now get the right knowledge about what this condition is,
Hmm.
and start taking the steps to, you know, slowly reverse it. It'll be okay.
Hmm.
You'll get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you, because I think everybody goes through a lot of dark times, right? Because you're on this never-ending search for with specialists and doctors, and they're telling you you're perfectly healthy, but you definitely don't feel perfectly healthy. And a lot of times you come home from the doctor feeling worse, like just deflated, especially emotionally, because you're expecting them to tell you answers. So for you, I mean, how long were you on that search for answers for? Was it like a year of just testing, specialist, waiting for disappointment, and that?
It was longer than a year. It was longer than a year because it was up to the moment I joined the program. I still had a test scheduled that I hadn't done, and it was the last thing I did just before joining the program or right afterwards. It was a tilt table test.
Hmm.
And that actually they see, well, you have dysautonomia, your heart's fine, go see a neurologist, another one.
Yeah.
Right? Because I've been to the neuromuscular where they do the repetitive nerve stimulation test. I don't know if anyone's ever done that, but it lasted over an hour with them, different points in your body and increasing the, oh my God, shock, shock, shock,
Yeah.
shock.
Yeah. I remember that one. That was a weird one. But
Right? So
yeah,
you already have a hypersensitive nervous system. Now you spend an hour shocking, and oh, so now you're like this, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Oh, it's crazy.
but it did give me peace of mind in a way, because it's like the other thing that I wanted to have was something I needed to have, is like an out
Hmm.
for things like, um, I had jury duty, and I'm like, I cannot drive. How am I going to convince these people if the doctors keep telling me I'm okay, that I cannot go, So
Yeah.
now I have this dysautonomia thing I can at least use, to get out of jury duty, because I can't drive and I cannot sit up, and my cognition is not up to jury duty.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. At least the dysautonomia kind of diagnosis, it gives you some kind of thing that explains what's going on versus saying,
Right.
oh, well, right.
It doesn't give you a solution, but it gives you an out for some situations, which was useful. So I don't begrudge the doctors and the stuff, because ruling things out is important.
Definitely.
And but once you're done it.
Yeah.
Don't waste any more time and energy and money.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a good point too. Definitely for anybody watching this right now, make sure you get stuff ruled out, but don't rule out the same thing like every month. Because I was one of those people who did that blood test every month. Okay, maybe next time they'll find something, but it's the same blood test to the point where they're like, dude, you got to stop doing these blood tests. It's just there's nothing wrong with your blood. So definitely, go to the specialist. Sometimes you have to go on that merry-go-round to rule everything out. But once you rule it out, rule it out. Don't go back in that circle again, because it's a never-ending loop. I know people who have been on that merry-go-round for like 10 years. So you want to get to the root.
Ouch. Yeah, I see people turning around more quickly now. I think there's more information out, and happy for that,
Yeah.
because wow.
Oh yeah. There's people.
10 years, 15 years, 20 years.
Yeah, I can't
But
imagine. I can't imagine.
but people are getting better
Mm.
after 20 years. People are getting better after 13 years. I know I'm thinking about someone specific in the program. So
Oh yeah. Shout out
yeah,
to, I think, Alessia, is it?
Alessia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shout out to Alessia. She's crushing it. Yeah, lots of people getting better, and it's amazing to see people like you also getting your life back. And that's another cool thing too is you're coming up on 60. You said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're coming up on 60. So you got this when you're about 57, 58 ish. A lot of people, they think that just because they're older, they can't recover as fast as somebody who's in their 20s or 30s. And I always tell them, no, that's not the case, because the brain is the brain. If you do the right neuroplasticity things, it can change. So for you, it's cool to see you uh, getting your life back at this age. It's very, very inspiring.
Yeah, the idea of Krista, thank you, Krista, for this, but the allostatic load makes sense at every stage. It doesn't matter what caused it. Maybe your hormones, they're balancing a little bit differently at this point. It doesn't matter, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And for you, specifically for women in their 40s, even 50s, or people around your age, what kind of inspiration could you share with them? What kind of advice or just motivation? Because you obviously understand their perspective more than I do, but I know they can get better. But hearing
Oh,
someone like yourself could be helpful for them.
I think everyone can get better, for the younger women, right? I don't know. I did not have, but I had symptoms. I had bad PMS growing up, you know. I had pain that was sometimes would keep me very sick during the periods. Not every woman is like this, you know. So I can't really speak to because I wasn't in the thick of things
Mm.
at that age. But to the postmenopausal women, just don't think about it. Don't worry about it. You can get better. You can get well. You can get better than well.
Yeah, yeah. It's I was saying this on one of the calls earlier this week, but it's kind of like you have three lives. At least that's what I've experienced. There was my life prior to CFS, riddled with anxiety. I didn't even know I had anxiety throughout my whole life, but I guess I did.
Right.
I thought that feeling was normal to overthink and overanalyze and not be able to sleep and like feel this buzzing in my body. So there's my life prior to CFS. Then there's like the CFS life or dysautonomia life. Some people it's long COVID. And then that's like its own lifetime because it feels very long. It's a very intense, deep experience. Like that 2 to 2.5 years you were sick with this stuff, I'm sure it felt way longer than 2 years, right? Time goes by very slow. So that's,
Yeah, I'm somebody who can tolerate a lot of pain
mhm.
with grace and ease, but the idea of the pain never going away
Yeah,
just changes it all, right?
that's the hard part, right?
I do some procedures. There are no TMI, but some procedures that people use anesthesia for that I don't normally.
Mhm.
So I know that it's not that you're not courageous or that it's just the idea of this unrelenting,
Yeah.
intense symptom never going away. And that's the first thing to dispel. And I think once I understood that, I started sleeping better.
Mm.
And so things start just, you start sleeping better. Now you have a little bit more room
Mhm.
to expand. You have a bit more capacity.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you're not ready, watch more videos
Yeah,
to
just watch
understand this.
videos, dive deep into the content. Like, don't even listen to what I'm saying. Just watch all the proof of other people getting better, and you'll see
Right.
there's people just like you. For anybody watching this, there's people like Olga, Alessia, so many people who are getting their lives back. And once you do start making progress, and you do start coming out of this second life, dealing with CFS and long COVID, all of that stuff, you start your third life. And I feel like it's like you go back into the world different. Just you think differently, you're able to respond to situations differently because the only way to get out of this phase, the CFS phase, is to rewire a lot of the ways you think. in your thinking patterns. That's the only way to get out. So you actually emerge back into the world with this advantage. You understand how stress works, how your emotion plays into your energy, all of these things, and you're able to spot certain situations or downward spirals and correct them right away before it gets bad. Whereas before,
Right away.
yeah,
I don't want it to contribute to the cycle, you
exactly.
know? So you cut that. And the other thing, because I think the work is lifetime. It's that the work doesn't go away just because you get well. Because it's important to also let some steam off, and this is going to be an individual thing. What is that you do to let some steam off periodically? It doesn't have to be perfect. You are a ton more resilient than you think. You're stronger than you think. You can take some days without sleep and be okay. You know, you can eat some junk food and be fine if you have to. If you happen to travel and all they have is sugar, eat the sugar,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Like when I think that's one of the fears too when people get when they imagine themselves getting better, they're like, do I have to be perfect? And is it okay to eat this or that? Like, can I pull an all nighter or can I go out to that party with loud music? What if there's alcohol and I accidentally take a sip? Go back to square one. No, that's not the case. Your threshold is going to be much stronger when you're at that stage. In fact, I would say my threshold is way bigger than what it used to be because I can stop my mind from going into any kind of spirals, or at least almost all of them. And I feel more resilient than before. Like I feel like I can handle more than before. So, you can actually surpass, let's say this was life before, then you have CFS, goes back down here. Once you get better, your capacity can totally increase and beyond what you used to be able to handle. And your experience of life is just going to be very different. But that's the whole point.
Yeah,
Well,
that time in the couch where you spent there, where you cannot escape your thoughts because you can't even tolerate it, like too much light stimulus or too much sound or anything, and you can't really be moving too much. You know, use it wisely. Really, you need to obsess. You don't need to, but watch your thoughts for a little bit. You know, and for me personally, it was important to distinguish between the things I could change and the things that did not belong to me.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and
And
so
even
use
that,
that time in the couch, and
yeah,
even that,
yeah, even just that one small change, being able to distinguish between, okay, what can you control and what can you not control, and then letting go of what you can't control, just that one small change can make a huge difference because you'll realize, especially when you're on the couch, probably 95% of the things you're thinking about you can't control anyways. So
right?
there's no point dwelling on them. But I know it's tricky trying to cut that loop, right? So for you, Olga, looking at your future and what's to come for your life, what are some things that you have planned out? Like, what is kind of your vision for the future, or are you just kind of taking it day by day? What's it looking like moving forward?
I now have the desire to do other things, and again, start shifting my focus from which I had been doing at the time when I don't know, got got when CFS kind of started, um, and I want to shift my work into something that's more meaningful to me. I have an idea of what that looks like. I'm beginning to prepare myself to do that, and I hope, like in the immediate contacts that I have, like my family, my friends, that I can be like, you know, someone who can. I see the anxiety everywhere now.
Mm,
I didn't know I was like you. I didn't know I was anxious. I see it everywhere.
mhm,
That I can, maybe be a helpful force out there for others to understand what's going on and how, to help them explore how to let some of this go and just maybe share some of the tools.
mhm. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Give back and have a positive effect on other people's lives with the knowledge and experience you have now because you've been in the trenches yourself at like some of the deepest levels. So I think that's one of the most powerful things we could do is take our experience, flip it on its head, and use it for good to help others so that the suffering wasn't all in vain, I guess you could say, and it didn't go.
Right.
So, any trips coming up for you? Anything planned? You going back to South America again?
Not to go to South America, but there's something on my bucket list, which I didn't even have a bucket list, right? Because you start going, well, get rid of all the high heels in your closet because you're never going to wear them again.
Yeah,
Good thing I didn't. Do not get rid of your high heels, people. If you are thinking about it, just hang on to those for a little longer, okay? Um, but I always wanted to see the Northern Lights. The Canadians probably are sick of it, but I want it. And my husband has family in North Dakota, so we're thinking about next time there's a solar flare. This is hard to kind of gauge when, but
yeah,
we are just gonna up and go. You know, we're maybe doing this winter. I don't know,
that,
something. Yeah,
that's exciting. That wait, you can see it in North Dakota. I didn't know you could see it from down there.
it's not as common. I imagine, like I had no idea. Parts of North Dakota are higher latitude than parts of Canada.
Oh, really?
Um,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the eastern part of Canada is at lower latitude than North Dakota.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Got it.
yeah,
So that's the aurora borealis, right?
right,
Ah, okay.
right.
Yeah,
I mean, to a Canadian, that may seem like nothing, but I would love to see this, you know.
yeah, that would be cool. I've never personally seen it myself. Actually, that's one of my bucket list things too. I guess we don't get
Really,
it in Vancouver. If I drove up north, maybe 2 hours, I'd probably see it. Um,
you probably would.
yeah, no, it's great. Always great hearing from thrivers who have done so well in their first 6 to 12 months in the program and who continue to do well. It's always exciting to see where people go after they get their lives back, and I know you're still on some of the calls every now and then to continue soaking up knowledge. But is there anything else you want to share with people as we close this off? I know you shared lots of words of inspiration. Is there anything else you want to share with people now that you've had your life back for quite a handful of months now?
I just, just hold courage as a value and trust people who've gone through it to guide you.
It's been done before, guys. It's been done before, not just by myself, not just by Olga, by so many other people, um, and even more people who never actually share their story and just kind of move on with their lives. So it's been done many, many times before. And if they can do it, if we can do it, and if we're sharing the knowledge for free on this YouTube channel, dive right into it and you can do it as well. So never ever give up. Keep on going, keep on chipping away, and eventually you'll be a thriver and you'll be able to have thriving health. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This one's super inspiring. Olga is still crushing it. If you didn't watch her last video, definitely click the link up here. You could see a lot of the progress she made in her first handful of months in the program. But if you did need extra help, you could just click the link down below. We have a few different resources, a couple different programs that we use to help people get better. There's Recovery Academy and Recovery Jumpstart. But if you did need some extra help and you didn't want to do this on your own, just through the YouTube videos, you can apply for the programs and we can see if we can help you if you're a good fit. But other than that, we'll see you guys in the next video. Make sure you hit the like button on this one, and we'll see you next time. Take it easy, guys.